Welcome back, everybody, to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris Blue Raven. I'm here with my very special guest, James Walbert. James, you with me?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Well, it certainly is a pleasure to have you on tonight. I'll tell you what, I so appreciate what you're up to and what you've been doing, and I'm very happy that you've had some success with this. And it sounds like you say you have your case, you're going to be back in the court, so it sounds like things are working out for you.
Yeah, and they really are in a positive manner.
Mm-hmm.
I had been back in, I would say, 2009, with the documentation and professional support of like William Taylor and then my whole array of professionals that are on the team for the case. Excuse me. I was very successful in addressing the issue with State Representative Jim Guest. Now, keeping that in mind, there were on the day that he was introducing House Bill 550 on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. at the House of Representatives, he had, you usually do a bill introduction. And basically what that consists of is when you introduce a bill to the House, you have to basically get, House support as well as statutory support and congressional support. So in his efforts in achieving these areas of support successfully, he had been conveying the mishaps of my particular case that had actually inspired the bill and the introduction of House Bill 550. With that on the table, they had broke for session. So he spoke for about 2 hours on the actual bill. And after his point of introduction, they broke for a session break. And over the break, it's usually like maybe 2 or 3 hours, he was approached by several other congressional members from several other states. And now I reside in one of the states that are on the table, and I won't disclose it just yet. I will here in a few weeks. I mean, there's a few people that are aware of where I'm at right now, but and it's just not any top secret strategy, but it is a back pocket strategy. This way I can keep a few things under wraps, but in the particular state that I reside in now, it's a $10,000 day fine, per offense, per implant, and a 5-year sentence in state prison every day, of occurrence of the crime per, implant, per offense. So we're looking at, a very large settlement, and that's one of the reasons I keep everything under wraps, is just for the simple fact that, I don't want, the exposure at this particular moment because we're so close.
Right. No, I understand. Yeah.
So, I mean, with this coming out, this could, kick another dent in the door, of their successful vehicle that they have against us at this particular moment. Mm-hmm. My objective is to run that vehicle off the road, so, and I mean, because it needs to stop.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, picking on anybody is, from a distance, is probably the most embarrassing, humiliating act of any American to perform against anybody. It's the most childish, ignorant act I've ever seen in my entire life. I mean, I have never experienced anything more humiliating, of not myself. I'm not humiliated. I'm an individual that lives my life. I work my job. Mm-hmm. And I'm doing nothing wrong. I mean, to date, I have speeding tickets on my record. That's going to be the single most worst thing you're ever going to find about me, mm-hmm. And the most, successful thing that you'll ever find about me as any point of recognition is that my mama raised me to be a man, and in that rearing of, of parental guidance, I was raised to, stand up for myself. My mama always told me, she said, don't ever go out the door with a ball bat or a gun. And fight these idiots, like some, seething, idiotic monger, that just is never going to get anywhere. She said, Jimmy, she said, I raised you to, be educated, and by God, if you don't like something, you grow up, you get educated, and you change it. You address it, like a professional, sound-minded individual, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
I mean, and I did that, with a concise mannerism of intention, and I didn't come out of the gate, saying that I was, experiencing, visual, optical, reconnaissance, or, that can hear through my ears. I didn't say none of that stuff, I mean, because one, I didn't have evidence of it. And two, that's probably, the most absurd thing you can say to somebody. You know what I mean? When you walk out, that's exactly what. Yeah, I mean, you have to recognize it. You know, at some point, you know that the technology is there and it does exist. But that's what they want you to do. They want you to walk outside, you know, and tell some, you know, law enforcement or some entity that can put you away. That boom, and that's what's going to happen. You know, so I went about it a little more.
Are you hearing voices? You know, and that's the sad part, because
right.
they do set people up for a psychological breakdown because they bully and push remotely with the technology. It's called passive harassment. And of course, you know, when you're mentioning these guys, they're cowards and they're bullies, and they harm people remotely, and they think they can get away with it. And I'm telling you right now, I think your case is just the beginning of everybody else stepping up and actually starting to prosecute all these perpetrators, including myself, by the way, because I haven't given up on the scum that are literally have harassed me for the past, well, since 2004. And let me tell you something, I've been subjected to stuff that's worth at least $10,000 a second. So yeah, and then you calculate 12 years. Yeah, mine's worth a lot too. If I were ever to get these guys behind bars and prosecuted, which they belong. But I'll tell you what, I'm kind of determined, because I believe there's universal law, and I believe that when people do such wicked things, there's accountability, especially when you're attacking another person. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's my whole point, you know, of you know, my intention, what I'm doing at this particular stage in the game, you know, is I've become, you know, engrossed with just being fed up. You know, I'm tired of it. I mean, I'm one of the largest, you know, cases on the planet. You know, I've made congressional history. I've made, you know, a historical, sociological, you know, point of credibility. You know, I mean, now I speak to, you know, people about it, and they don't question my sanity. They don't question my mindfulness. You know, because they see my business. They see, you know, points of, you know, intellectual proprietary, you know, success. You know. And because I'm building a research development, you know, manufacturing foundation as well as a firm, you know, so it's not a hot dog stand. It's not a retail store. You know, it takes years to do this, you know, and it's very difficult, you know, being a TI to do it. You know, it's even it's very difficult as an individual that's not a targeted individual, you know, to actually perform and pull off such an act. I mean, 97% of all small businesses in America fail just simply because of the ignorance of the businessmen that's running them. You know, on top of the fact that I'm a targeted individual in a broken, you know, economical, sociological setting, you know, so I have a few factors that are against me, you know, so to have any success at all, you know, is you know, encouraging to me.
Well, you have your wits about you, and that's a good thing. I can tell you're educated. You know, it's interesting. You said you were a martial artist?
Yes, I am.
Oh my! See, this is another thing. You know, when they hit me, I was in my prime. You know, very intelligent and writer, author, surveyor. You know, so it's interesting. Black belt, second degree teaching martial arts, mixed martial arts, also state champ for women's advanced kickboxing. So they didn't hit some little drug addict on the street. You know, they went after somebody who had a career and a livelihood, and that's what pisses me off too. But you're a martial artist. I think they look for skills like that. I swear.
I do too. You know, I had spoke with a couple. There's another Robert Duncan that's on the scene that most people don't know him. You know, and he's a super soldier. You know, and I had spoke with him, and he is and I had conversed with him, you know, off the record and stuff. You know, I know him very well. Not Dr. Robert Duncan.
Are you talking Duncan O'Finian, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Okay, not Robert Duncan. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, this guy is amazing. You know, and he's. And I had achieved my very first, my dan, and as well as my fold in Fujian, you know, traditional Japanese Aikido, which is a very ancient art.
Love it.
You know, I mean, yes, you know, and I mean, it's banned and outlaw now. You know, there's only one dojo that actually still teaches, and it's pretty much going under because of the amount of conveyant lethalities that are involved. You know, and I studied it for 7.5 years, and I also had studied Rudy Kempo, Chinese kickboxing for all the way up to my first degree brown belt. You know, which is, you know, not like another 6.5 years of training. It's not you know, your street corner cookie cutter martial arts.
It's actual.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's traditional discipline. You know, it's all interdisciplinary. You know, 605, you know, certified registered moves. You know, I mean, and literally 112 of them are conveyant lethalities. You know, so I'm not indestructible. You know, I mean, I am a human being. You know, but you know, it's I understand why they hid from me. In other words, you know, and Robert Duncan did. I mean, Robert O'Finian did too. You know, and he's like this. He's like, you are an individual that is 100% inherited of the same program that I went through. He said, your intellect, he said, your background, your martial arts, he said, and to speak to you one-on-one is like listening to a postmodern scientist. He said, your vocabulary is just phenomenal, he kept complimenting me. He said, and he started showing me all these programs of Super Soldier and Super Genius and all this other stuff, and I was like, holy cow. He's like, so, he's like, this is why I wanted to talk to you off the record. It's because, do you feel that you were a victim of these programs? Do you feel that these could be, things that you were introduced to as a child and you just simply don't know it? And I mean, my mom, I spoke with her about it, and she's like, well, unless I don't know it. She's all like, you're the Jenny that I raised, she's like, and you've always been like this,
Right.
So, I mean, I do, attribute it and, chalk it up to a natural inheritance, I mean, and my family is full of, martial arts experts and, heart, cardio, scientists and, medicinal clinicians and, psychologists. I mean, they've always been Ivy League achievers, I mean, it's indicative of my family. So, unless our whole family are victims, for, many generations, I would have to say, I really don't know, because now I've many years into the harassment, I see all these programs that I was ignorant to before, we very well could have been, you know what I mean?
Right.
And we could have just, simply been, really super smart people.
I think what it is that you're a candidate. They look at people who are intellectual, spiritually evolved to some degree, athletic. They look for a certain profile sometimes when they're working on a program and they want to induct somebody for testing. And I would say that with my circumstance, I can tell you that's why I was a candidate for the technology. And it worked really well with me, unfortunately. But I'll tell you, I think that's probably what it is on a lot of levels. I don't think that it was anything that marked you and your family. I mean, I don't get that you're mind controlled like in generation mind control. I mean, it's possible, but I don't get that at all with you. I think that they just thought you were a good candidate. And obviously you pissed somebody off enough where they wanted to do some kind of a malicious retaliation. And also keep tabs on you. And so far as what your patents are about, it seems to me like they're very interested in your patents.
Yeah, and I mean, I would have to agree, I mean, because a toxic-free and a chemical-free, ionic molecular, suspension or compound, it basically, eliminates, anywhere from 19,000th of a micron all the way up to 20 microns of any type of bioagent, any type of bacteria, microbial level, all the way up to fungus.
That's huge.
I mean, yeah, that's super huge. I mean, I have, big companies, that are approaching me as, clientele, like Pfizer Pharmaceutical, Rock, and the Department of Defense, I mean,
that's it right there, my friend. The Department of Defense. Okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Whenever they're involved, if they're insidious, I hate to tell you, I don't care what they say, I don't care how they smile. These people are in it for insidious programs. They do nothing but it's all about control, manipulation, and weaponization of technology. And let me tell you something. They've weaponized the brain. They've weaponized our beautiful, beautiful, four-body system, so to speak.
And I would definitely have to agree with you. I mean, now after I had released the patents and things like that, because now they are under a congressional non-publication act, and that was placed by the White Collar Crime Division of the FBI out of Quantico, Virginia. They had actually placed the hold on it, and the subsidy and the actual, legal retention of the patents, and it's indefinite. They said this is for the betterment of you, and this is for the job security of ours. He said because we released these patents because what had happened is I had filed my patents, and then I had gotten a call. I was up on a ladder at work. I'm a residential maintenance technician at the time. I'm painting this house. I mean, I'm working 114-degree weather, and I get a call from a number of nothing but zeros. So immediately I answered it, I was like, I don't know what this is, but, and I got on there and there was two special agents that were conferenced in on the call. And they were telling me that, they said, you will receive this, this, and this, and this in the mail. I was like, okay, what's going on? He's like, well, somebody tried to file on your patents. He said, and for one, we want to know, who it was and how they found out that you even filed these patents to begin with. He said, because this is not a secretive process, James. He said, but this is a process of, basically a cushion zone or a grace period of non-publication for a reason. And it's also for examination, determination of functionality, whether it's going to work or not.
Mm-hmm.
He said, and yours is, he said, if this was a, chronological period of 10 weeks, for, affirmation of release, successfully, he said, you're 2 weeks into it and somebody's already trying to steal it. He's like, so somebody here on the inside, somebody you spoke to, somebody that knows you, that knows something, that knows what's going on, and I was like, okay, I said, so you're 10% into the process of being 100% completed, and somebody has already got their foot in the door. And then he sent me a copy of the patent, and it had a big cancellation on it, and it had like a second stamp of, examination on it, which basically means that it had gotten all the way to the examiner's desk, and he said, whoa, wait a minute. He ran the numbers, and, several red flags went up, and he called the FBI, and now when I have to call to get my patents for investors and things like that, I have to call the Virginia United States Patent and Trademark Office and speak with a particular individual out there, a little old lady, and after that, I have 2 sets of numbers I give her, and then she will release any information to myself. But I have to go through this ridiculous, rigoring process of identification just to get my own patents.
That's wild.
Wow. It's ridiculous, it's like having to, give blood and pee in a cup just to drive my car.
Well, that's coming too. Don't you worry.
No doubt. We've paid $70,000 for these patents.
Right.
They're not cheap.
Can I ask you if you have a clearance? Because weren't you contracted with government? Did they give you a clearance?
Yeah, we actually they had given my company and the actual owner, president, and a principal investigator is what they call it at my level, and we have a government secret clearance right now.
Okay, so I was just curious. All right, I was just wondering, obviously they always do background checks and scrutinize people, but this is beyond the scrutiny of things when they start implanting and doing all the other stuff, right?
Yeah, and see, and when I sent you the information the first time, I was half tempted, to send, all of my credentials, because that's just who I am. I'm not trying to brag. I'm not trying to be, pompous or boastful, but I mean, as you can tell in that email I sent you, the amount of evidence on it, I'm all about, keeping it real.
Oh, you are. You're awesome.
So real that, you will never doubt that JAMESWALBERT just contacted you.
It's funny. I asked for your bio, and you sent me this nice format with all this information. I was like, and all these pictures, and I was like, wow, this guy's on it. So, yeah, I was very impressed with that, James. No doubt.
Thank you. And see, and I appreciate it, because you're an individual that I admire, because especially now that I know a little bit about you, and your disciplines and things like that, and your achievements, and it's not just because you're a girl, you know what I'm saying? Because that's just cheesy, but it is a point of, it's your strength, it's admiration, it is the ability to, be trapped in a world of, being the underdog, in a sociological setting and rising above it, and that's what I admire about individuals at our levels, so, which would definitely, lead me to, ponder the thought, with any type of non-assumptive, actual consideration, with a strong point of conclusiveness, that we very well could have been targeted, for our, natural physiological abilities, our natural, intellectual abilities, and, just as being born individuals, children of God is who we are, because mine has been a very, very powerful, pungent, stench of a spiritual attack as well.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
They've attacked my religion. I don't even have a religion. I believe, something out of a sociological secular box. I adhere to, a steadfast and knowledge of gnosis. So I don't veer off the path of, of reality. Where people in a sociological secular setting, they create this meat puppet show, that is completely absurd, and I'm like, man, I can't believe what you're doing to yourselves and your kids, but I'm not going to go out there and force something down someone's throat.
Right.
Where on the other hand, I'm a victim of this harassment, and that is exactly what happened. I mean, it's definitely, the influential point, is trying to influence me to become something that I've never been, or
right.
I mean, it's like literally trying to change a dog into a cat. It's not going to work.
Right.
So
they call it entrainment programming sometimes, or they call it
right.
Re-education. They mentioned that to me when they first pulled me into the program. They said you'll have to be re-educated. They were very, very sarcastic. And I'll tell you, I'll never forget what they said. I'll never ever forget these guys, what they said and how they talked to me. And it's real interesting when they what they're trying to do is recreate something in somebody. This is where the mind control comes in some people, where they try to create alters and personality so they can fulfill a mission or something. But what happened to me was I'm very established in myself, so I just kept overriding the programs and ascending and turning these people in. So, but if you do talk mind control in the courtroom, forget it. It's over the judge's head. And you have to go in with the technology and say this is what it is, and actually address it as such, and just talk technology. Period. And basically the side effect is psychotronics and visuals and dialogue. But literally we're dealing with a signal that's engaged with your own neural circuits, and it's causing a lot of the problems. And that's really what it boils down to. So you have to keep it kind of basic for them.
Yeah, you do. You can't get into, areas of, like linguistic encumbrance. You can't start to use, linguistic terms of, vocabulary or, cognitive encumbrance. You can't, topple them with big words, basically, to put it at a layman level, because conversely, it's a point of moot. I mean, you cannot do it in a court of law, without having a pack of expert witnesses. That's why I went about it the way that I did. I didn't say anything to anybody. All I did was sit back for 3 years and observe everybody else's failure. And I hate to say it like that, but that's Fuji and Aikido. I mean, we observe how an individual fails at overcoming you, and their failure is, eager and anger and madness and abrupt moves. And we learn how to use the individual's inertia or their energy against themselves.
Yeah.
I trained like that for 7 years straight. I mean, from a child, so it's literally the only template that I know, so I sat back and I noticed all the losses, and I thought, well, suing the president's not going to work, and I thought, running outside and telling them, the ears, eyes, and nose and throat and the five senses are being, controlled by some, marionette master of puppets, that's not going to work, So, I mean, I finally, I saw the things that I found the template. I found the path, doctor, scientist, factuality,
yep.
A realistic approach, don't use this jargon, use intellectuality and the technological explanation, don't take this pile of rubble and, and run outside with it like 300,000 other victims did, suing the president. I'm like, wow, in the year, 2003, there were like half a million lawsuits that were filed against President Bush for electronic harassment. Well, of course you're not going to win. I mean, you're just you're putting goggles on and running into a brick wall. And all I saw was a pattern of lemmings. That just kept falling off the cliff. And I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. So after 3 years, I basically built up a professional staff, of clinicians and, psychologists and PhD doctors and, famous investigators and, statutory individuals, stateside as well as, congressional members. And then I came out, and when I walked in the courtroom, the judge was all like, whoa, he's like, and Ted Gunderson was like, my Lord. He's like, he's like, I don't know where you came from. He's like, but man, I really wish there was like, some place I could send people to be this efficient. He's like, because he's like, in my 40 years of being an agent, I didn't even know who Ted Gunderson was. Mm-hmm. I mean, to me, he was just Ted Gunderson. But when I had spoke to him on the phone and met with him, he is an iconic individual that is just amazing. I mean, this guy is LEO, law enforcement officer. This guy is scary.
Right. Didn't he pass away, James? Is he still alive?
No, there's been a toss-up on, controversy there, but I know him. And I mean, and what I mean by knowing him is I have his home phone number. I have his cell phone number. I have his fiance's phone number in Nebraska. You know, I mean, I have their home address. I can get in my car and drive to their place. You know, I mean, I know him. And when I spoke to his girl, you know, his fiance, when he passed away, there was no reason for her to lie. You know, I mean, and if she was lying, then she was the best actress I've ever, you know, experienced being torn up. You know, I mean, it was a legitimate conversation, and she was, you know, genuinely heartbroken. You know, I mean, so, you know, I mean, it very well may have been a facade, you know, so that he could go and at least relax for the last part of his life. You know, I mean, but knowing Teddy, you know, he's not scared. I mean, the guy will come out swinging. You know, I mean, all the way in his walker. He doesn't care if there's an erroneous act, you know, concurrent against an individual, an American. He will stand up for you. You know, I mean, there was a lot of controversy about him being a perp, you know, and all this other stuff, which is mudslinging is to be expected. You know, especially with iconic, you know, figures like himself. You know, the same with William Taylor. You know, William Taylor is an admiral individual. He is extremely respectful, respectable. He is an amazing, you know, Marine platoon reconnaissance officer. You know, I mean, the accomplishments, the guy that had, you know, Terrence Silkwood cases, Iran-Contra, you know, DuPont. I mean, his cases are they're phenomenal. You know, I mean, and
where's he out of? Where's he out of? What
he's
state?
in Daytona Beach, Florida.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know, and he's super iconic. You know, and the same with like, you know, Peter Mazzoni. You know, when you get to know who Peter Mazzoni is, you know, he is amazing. You know, I mean, when you start to look at his you know, history, how long he's been investigating this particular crime, and how long he's been a private investigator, you know, and his track record. You know, I mean, William Taylor's, you know, in his 70s now. You know, I mean, I'm not sure how old, you know, Mr. Mazzoni is, but, you know, he is now cresting a point of, you know, success. You know, so, I mean, you know, just keep that in mind, you know, I mean, so, and I would highly recommend his services, you know, and I'm not throwing a plug out there because I know him, you know, and, you know, but I'm throwing the plug out there because for some reason, you know, the Lord has chose me as an individual to be very successful in this crime. I know individuals, you know, I mean, I myself, and just like you said, I have to kind of wonder why and scratch my head, you know, in a sociological setting as to, you know, the negligence of the individuals that don't actually do anything. You know, I mean, my cases have always been successful. I'm very credible, you know, and I mean, I think that, you know, I mean, without being too boastful, too self-centered, you know, I'm very well, you know, versed in the particular crime now. I'm a very, you know, truthful and, you know, rock solid individual. I would never lie or mislead anybody. You know, there's nothing for me to gain, you know, and I can't imagine. I wouldn't lie, period, you know, because lying is losing, you know, I mean, and, you know, when it comes to competition, and as I'm sure being a fellow martial artist yourself, you know my art. You know, Fujin and Aikido is non-competitive. We don't compete, you know, because we don't have anything to prove to anybody.
Right.
You know, I mean, we are 100%, and I mean, we are 100% a combative, offensive, defensive, you know, legal martial arts. You know, I mean, I'm not going to fight you, even if you come up and sucker punch me, you know, I mean, because my objective is to, you know, protect myself in a mannerism that if I feel I'm in danger, I'm going to eliminate you from the game.
That's
you know?
right.
I mean, and that's just the bottom line. I mean, if I don't feel that I'm in danger, I will simply restrain you and, you know, and allow you to proceed. But, I mean, it's going to take something for that to happen, you know? I mean, I'm not just going to run outside and go crazy and start kicking and punching people at the dome.
You're not the aggressor. Yeah.
Exactly. You know, I mean, where most people have a huge misconception about Aikido to begin with, they think it's all just this or just that, or it's all just defense, you know, and it's quite the opposite.
Oh, I love Aikido. Yeah, I love Aikido. My ex-husband was Aikido.
Combative.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely combative, you know. I'm certified in all 52 Chinese martial art weapons, you know, I mean, as well as myself, you know, I'm being a weapon.
That's right,
you know?
Yeah, that's what they say to me, yeah. We're supposed to be registered. Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, Kansas has pretty much, you know, nullified the program now. I mean, where before, you know, I mean, 90 days outside of my, you know, county registration, and they're going the next of kin. You know, they're looking, you know, they're like, hey, where did he go? You know, I was like, hey, man, I'm at my mom's house, man. You're like, hey, you didn't, you know, you moved from here and we're just coming to next of kin. So I was like, how'd you find me? I was like, we didn't come here looking for you in particular. We came to, to next of kin. It's like, a failure to register is a pretty hefty fine. It's like you realize that we find someone in the neighborhood that has, wounds or, injuries that are indicative of this, and you're the number one suspect. And I was all like, okay, great. I'm moving out of Kansas.
Really? No wonder they tag you. No, I'm just kidding. That's wild.
Yeah, exactly. Don't say that.
No, I'm just kidding. When I taught martial arts, we used to have law enforcement come over to train with us. And this is what pisses me off. And then they pulled me into this covert program, and I thought, I was really disappointed in our local law enforcement because they never got behind me. And they never actually, pursued, investigations against these people. It's like somebody told them all to stand down. And I'm sure you probably got that. Maybe you did or maybe you didn't. But I think in a lot of circumstances with mine, and the guy who was the perp was contracted with this high-profile band. He's a private investigator. So I'd love to see this guy go under, man. It just makes me so angry when I think about my case, and I'm so proud of you because I'm glad you're having this success because it motivates me even more so to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And also, the people that are being affected out there, get the documentation, get these measurements done, and get somebody behind you where you can start, pursuing something similar.
Thank you. A point of pride is not something I've ever carried with me, but I definitely appreciate, the observation.
Mm-hmm.
Recognition is something is it's a metering point inside of me as an individual. I wasn't, my objective by releasing all the information and going about it in the manner that I went about it in is a simple point. If an individual, like my mother, stood back and watched what I've done, I would think that I would like to, for her to say, wow, every single thing that I taught him, every single thing he learned from, the Lord, and biblical, inheritances and, his martial arts, this guy, grew up to be exactly what I told him to be, I didn't have a dad, I had just my mom,
She did a good job with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying too, and that's the thing, my mom has always stood by me throughout this, girl. She has never one time left my side. She has said, I don't care what anybody else says. She's all like, you don't go, to have dinner with political, congressional members and be a lying, schizophrenic loon, She's all like, you don't come home with stacks of letters from FBI agents, and my mom is a serial, novelist of nothing but, she's a couch potato detective, in other words,
Mm-hmm.
And an armchair warrior, she's all about Agatha Christie and Stephen King and all these, murder mysteries and things like that, so she's all about investigatory, and she's all like, I can't believe it. She's like, you were always against all that stuff, you were always Mr. Encyclopedia, and I'm going to be smarter than Mom. And she's like, and by God, you grew up to be 1,000 times smarter than me, and you know all these people, and she's all like, and there's nothing that they can do to discredit you, She's like, so why would I not believe you? I raised you, and other than the fact that you get mad and go outside and yell back at people sometimes that I don't see, She's all like, but she's like, I cannot chalk that up to any point of insanity, Jimmy. She's all like, you're still the same guy that I raised, so.
Great. Can I ask you something real quick? When you had those perps with the ham radios, how far away were they with their vehicles? How many feet are we talking here?
Well, if you can kind of imagine how cellular technology works. A lot of people think, cellular technology is just, well, I'm on my cell phone. Well, what people don't understand is that, it's much like a cordless phone. You have an antenna and you have a parameter of broadcast. Well, inside that parameter of broadcast, you can talk to anybody you want to for as long as you want to. Mm-hmm. You step outside that parameter and it's going to start cutting out static and interference. Okay, well, use that same logic inheritably to the implants. If you are in a circumference or an omnidirectional, path of this particular broadcasting equipment, you are able to, be accessed. So they could be, depending on your ham operator's license, and your amplitude. Amplitude is going to be the oomph, your actual torque of the telemetric style type of weapons that they're using. In a telemetrical equation, it's trigonometry. There's 3 points of equitable numerical application. You have duration, you have distance, and you have your actual chronological, what they call it, a test bench, mm-hmm. and your time of duration. Okay, so if you threw a football from point A to point B, how far did it go? And how long did it take to get there? And what kind of, power behind that football did it take for these two other equations to be achieved? So you have amplitude, a modulation of the frequency, and you also have, duration and distance. So keeping that in mind, they can broadcast anywhere between 300 feet up to 3 miles sometimes in a circle. You know what I mean? It's not actually a circumference. It's actually a parameter of omnidirectional, which basically means that there's 8 points of linear direction that it can broadcast in. So, and that linear projection can be, 35 feet wide, in 8 different directions, so it could be, it depends on your ham operator's equipment, I mean, they could be 300 feet away from you just around the corner, or they could be literally a half a mile away from you going down the highway. You would never know that they were there, and they just broadcast away. Some of them use trajectory line of sight, some of them use linear, junctions, which is like, straight down the sidewalk, I mean, some of them use, geostationary and equatorial satellites to actually track individuals, I mean, it just, satellite triangulation is pinpoint, precision. I mean, they can track a cell phone all the way down to, within 6 inches inside your house, you know what I mean? And that's not done with satellite, there's a huge misconception about, heterodyne, true, telephonic communicative technology and satellite involved, and I mean, satellite's going to be your global positioning, your GPS, but now most people, I mean, you would be surprised that the minuscule amount of satellites that are being used these days for communications at a level. I mean, because now they have the RF telephonic net, from all the microwave towers, big wind towers and things like that, that they could broadcast, 300 and I think it is like 300 and some thousand feet. It's an astronomical amount of feet. I mean, how far these things can broadcast, that's almost like a shortwave radio. I mean, you can hear shortwave, you can hear, broadcasts from Japan, because the frequency is so slow and so heavy and, so dense from the amplitude. So it's really hard to say sometimes.
Right. What about, I didn't want to interrupt you. I want to ask you real quick, though. What about trailers? Do you remember seeing any trailers, anything that looks like trailers around your place when you were being stalked?
Now, I mean, yes, I had seen vans, brown vans, usually dark color vans, that appeared to have like transport vans for like, prisoners or, people that have been jailed or, individuals of retention, legalities or something like of the sort, And then I had an ATF agent point out to me that those are not windows. Those are not breathing out. Those are not, for aspiration of any kind of, convection or anything of the sort. He said, those are broadband antennas, James. He said, those are, designed with the ability to, be non-visualized from a distance that can broadcast, in a very wide path, of what they would call like an audio static shotgun microphone. It's a silence, it's a type of like maser, microwave/laser technology. They've actually been focused on the individual themselves. It's like, and they don't hear people's thoughts, but they pick up what they call subvocal communications. And then once the individuals start conversing, they can do near field and far field, spectral, reconnaissance of, robust, vocal, which is basically recording the human voice from, a distance, so. And they're doing it without, implants or microphones or anything like that. It's an actual, field of, far field or near field of, maser technology, It's illegal. I mean, the obscenity of it's illegal. They can't use it in court, but, those technologies have been known, according to, Special Agent Wes Williamson of the ATF to, apprehend individuals in like narco raids and things like that, like the Branch Davidian down in Waco, Texas. Those technologies were utilized, LDAP, long distance acoustic projectors is basically what they are.
Yeah. What's so interesting? These guys know this technology. A lot of these divisions really, really know. And what I would say to all of them is step up, please, and disengage all of these people that are perpetrators against targeted individuals. I'm sorry, but something's got to be done. And there shouldn't be, I mean,
Yeah.
it should be no dispute right there. I don't understand why it's even being allowed.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, and I agree with you 100%. I mean, picking on, guys or whatever the case may be, but messing with women and children, I mean, being raised in the under the parental rearing that I was, introduced to, as a child. And my mom, my mom always taught me to be a man, and, if you want to pick on somebody or, that's, more proficient than you or something, then don't pick on them. I mean, don't go messing with a dog when you knowing you're going to get bit, but to hide from a girl or to hide from a baby or a child and, sexually abuse them or sexually stimulate them. I mean, there's no program on the planet that would allow that. There's no scientific observational, what kind of reconnaissance information, what are you recovering? What are we learning here? How to sexually abuse children, I mean, and inevitably, I mean, my case is going to come out, it's just going to explode. I mean, William Taylor, I mean, these people are going to test it when you'll see it when it happens. I can't go into a lot of detail, but when it happens, it's going to be the entire spectrum of the crime. I mean, expect to see the horrific, terrible acts that I mean, I almost feel like, sickened just by even thinking that these acts could be committed by a human being.
Right.
Let alone an American that lives down the road from me.
Yeah, it wouldn't occur to beings like us or good people to even do such a thing. I don't care how angry you get at somebody, you don't take it out on them like that. And I think that, when you do go to court and everything, and you let me know and come back on the show, I'd like to hear more, if you're up for it.
I definitely will. I mean, and I was never hesitant to, to seize the opportunity to speak out against the crime. But, I almost, I don't ever decline. I've got over 90 radio shows, some coast to coast. I mean, like 90 of them are on, Apple iTunes, I mean, I've come quite a ways, I mean, I was very nervous. I did like 40 radio shows inside of like 60 days. I was so sick. It was ridiculous. Everybody was like, man, you sounded terrible. I was like, I know.
You sound fine tonight.
I was so bad, and, but I mean, I've come a long ways, I mean, I told my perps, at the top of my lungs, when I left the state of Kansas that, it was, time to, start handing back, basically start hanging your hats, because where I'm going now is where you're basically going to start paying for the things that you've done. They broke in my home. They destroyed my entire house. My house had huge holes kicked in it. They stole from my mom's bank account. They ran up bills on her. I mean, they've done things to us now over the last 2 years. They, that have been, consistent and, indicative like fraudulent acts. The commonalities of, meagering, everyday crimes, and I know it's the same individuals, I mean, because they just laughed, and said, prove it, prove that we did this to you. It's like, you're never going to be able to do it, and they're like, we can't take you down any other way. So we'll find any way we can, I mean, they don't come by my cars. They don't come by me at all. I mean, they won't come by me whatsoever. I mean, when I called to address the individual, that's involved, he was backing down over the phone, and I wasn't even trying to, become aggressive or, in any mannerism of, physical, contact of any kind, I mean, but he had known what he had done, I mean, there's abuses that are going to be publicized that are, and I've made it this way. I have strategically, now that I've become proficient in the crime, I'm starting to use the template of the Fuginic, I'm starting to use now I've implemented, like Julian McKinney said, she said, with all due respect, James was stripped free of any weapons of, physical of implementation. So, this guy went and dug a computer out of a trash can, put it together and built it in his bedroom and just started whipping people with papers, and I mean, he has just, has just been like a samurai, man, I mean, and that was, to me, it was a really strong compliment, from a former, Army of Intelligence officer. She's all like, I don't know where he came from, but, and this was in a chat group, I'm all just on the internet, and somebody emailed me and they said, look what's going on here, I don't know who Julian McKinney is, and they're like, this girl is, like nobody to mess with. She don't compliment anybody, she's all like, but look at this conversation. And he sent me this conversation, and it was just amazing. It's like this one guy just like, was stripped free of everything he knows as a man, and now he has nothing left to fight with. He's fighting a coward, and with pieces of paper and a broken computer, and he has no idea what he's talking about at all. But boy, I mean, he's just knocking him down, And I just sent back, a nice little caption. I was like, that's the power of God, because boy, I'll tell you what, he is my motion, he is my guidance, he is my proficiency and my a template of inheritance. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Well, spirit guides you. Yeah, you're being divinely guided. There's no doubt about it. I was going to ask you also. Yeah. Are you still planning? I think you were looking to remove the implants. Is that going to happen?
Yes, and that's why I came to the state side, the state that I'm in of residency right now, is because they have an amazing victims of crime compensation board for this exact same particular, this particular crime that I'm going through, and the extraction process, I've already, been very successful in finding a doctor. I posted some stuff for donations, and I did it, because I'm not, financially 100% sound. I'm building my business, and my objective of building the business was, it's a systematic, self-destruct against my perpetrators. One, I posted all my information basically just to humiliate him, to show him, okay, guy, how much further you want to go with this? I've gone all the way to the top of the congressional members. I've made history. I've made statutory history. My case influenced laws. Now they're making movies with Dr. John Hall and Michael Moore and stuff like that, targeted. I've had History Channel, Discovery Channel, and I'm not bragging. I'm just my objective by releasing the information was to embarrass this perpetrator and say, hey, hands down, okay, guy, if you want to hide from me, so be it. But understand, you're not going to win. And if anything, if you don't want to come out facing me like a man, then I will make everyone know that without a doubt that you hid from me like a little sissy, and you do a fit like a little girl, and you still hid from me after I embarrassed you in front of the entire world. And I had no idea that my case was going to get this big. And I had no idea that he was this much of a coward. I would have figured at some point in his life, the testosterone would have bursted out, and by God, he'd come walk down the sidewalk like a man. And it didn't happen. I've broke cell phones, I've sold handguns, I moved out in the country. I'm almost homeless. I rendered myself of any type of defense, and he still hid from me, and whined and cried, and we're gonna win. I admire his stamina and his intentional self-infliction of stupidity, but by God, you're not gonna win. It's just simply not gonna happen.
Yeah, these people that did this, are they well off? You said they weren't, though, financially, right?
Well, come to find out, his family is very well off. Okay. And one of his friends is even more well off. And his friend was an individual of my own ignorance. I simply just did not know who he was. I certainly wouldn't have thought that he was a ham operator, because those were the frequencies that we found. Frequency A point of employment, is when you employ a frequency, is basically what that means is at a telemetric point of allocation, you have now designated 288 megahertz for this particular purpose. When you deploy the frequency at 288 megahertz, you have now actually energized the device and used it in a state of employment for, whatever purpose that you are, applying the technology for, your objectives. So now, we have an allocation of 288 megahertz of employment, over an area of, a fairly, measurable distance, over 300 feet, of frequency or telemetric deployment. So that means that it's intentional crime. That right there shows that it's not just a propagated signal that's just floating through the air. The actual, what I mean? Because it's actually being, deployed to, point B, which is myself. When I move, it moves, and when I breathe, it senses it. When I do anything, so the malicious intent has now been, concluded. There's beyond the shadows of doubt. Yep. It's not just an ambient frequency floating around in the air, la, 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 la. It's an actual frequency of employment that has been deployed intentionally in my area, with, an objective of, criminalities, for whatever reasons it very well may be.
Yep, absolutely. Well, they call them non-lethal weapons, but they are indeed lethal. I mean, they really are. When the push comes to shove, they really destroy the body. I know my body's been taken. It took a lot of hits with that technology. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and it just definitely, is a. I'm to the point now where I've graduated it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what else can I do?
Right.
I mean, and my mom just laughed at me. She's all like, "You're the most patient person I've ever seen in my
Mm-hmm.
life." She's like, I can't believe that you keep looking for methodologies, to make this guy be a man." She's like, "You've got to stop." She's like, because no matter how much, more evidence you produce, it's like you can't produce any more evidence. It's like, Jimmy, she's like, you have just toppled the cops. I mean, they come out and you have an entire sofa of nothing but phone numbers and congressional members, and you're saying words that are bigger than their whole education. She's all like, man, she's like, chill out. We believe you, she's like, there's no way that we can't, she's like, I understand that it's still going on. She's like, I understand that the guy is still hiding from you and still that it's happening. She's like, well, honey, we know that it's real. We know that there's a person out there that's doing this to you, and we know that he's hiding from you. She's like, you cannot make him be a man, So that's why I pretty much just took my place, And I was like, I mean, and she's absolutely correct.
Right.
I mean, and I saw the whole point, they're picking on girls and they're picking on women and children. That's where I drew the line,
Right. Oh, they get off on it too. Let me tell you, they enjoyed ruining my life. These guys were on tour and they were really digging it. It's really unfortunate that people are that malicious, but they are. Yeah. I mean, you should read my book. I'll send you a copy if you want. I have a copy. It's either Remote Black Operations. Yeah, in Area Bound 52. I'd be happy to send you a copy. Yeah, but I'm happy you had the success you've had, and I think it's wonderful. It gives everybody hope who's been hit with certain programs, and it gives them an opportunity to try to decode it. And also, and you're right, everything's out there. I mean, it's not cloaked anymore. We can actually find these patents and this information based on the technology, and that's a start. And that's actually where we need to really focus.
Yeah, you're right, and I mean, my whole, my whole demeanor tonight, my whole objective tonight on the phone, actually on the show with you, was to step outside, the box, the actual, cookie cutter, conversations that usually occur, with the same old, I mean, and the reason being is because, I'm trying to, establish, seize the opportunity, of course, which I greatly appreciate. And I admire you being out there doing what you're doing. I know it's hard as hell, where you're at right now, I mean, but you got the guts, and I respect you from here to heaven and back, I mean, because that is something, I mean, I could definitely, I know individuals that do the same thing that you do, that live out of a van and broadcast off of a Hewlett-Packard laptop, and they live on food stamps. You know what I mean?
Right.
Those are the people that I plan to embrace. You know what I mean? Because man, they have not stopped. I mean, they are out there on their trash can, just broadcasting, hooking a Wi-Fi off of somebody's Wi-Fi. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're doing what they can, and they're not backing out. I mean, all the way to the grave. These people will fight. That's an American to me.
Absolutely.
Not some coward that hides from me in a distance and drugs and implants a child and picks on a girl.
You're darn straight. Yep. Absolutely.
That's embarrassment.
Well,
that's an embarrassment.
It is an embarrassment, and that's the thing. You're a real American, and so am I, and I know our listeners are too. And I'm really, really pleased to have you on tonight. I must say, it's been wonderful to talk with you, and I'm just so happy for what you've succeeded in. And I wish you all the success and get those guys big time. Sending good thoughts your way on that. And then also, if people want to get in touch with you, how are they going to do that? What's the best way?
I'll tell you, I've got it. I have several points of contact. My most the one I use for this particular POC is going to be my email address for my activism, and that's just inventor0207@yahoo.com. You can also find me on Facebook, and soon we will have more POCs or points of contact for other individuals as soon as this case graduates. The name of my business is Clean Can Technologies Inc. We are now an incorporation. We're all over the internet. You can Google it and you'll find tons of stuff. 3 central branch offices, as well as now, and it makes it sound like it's super successful, but it's getting there. I mean, we now are moving to a point where we can actually get, grants. It takes a while to do what I do, I mean, but we are 100%, self-sufficient, and financially sound as far as the business goes. As far as like I was saying, it's not a hot dog stand or a retail store. It's not something that you can go and buy. I mean, we offer services in the field of, research and development for like antibacterial textiles and plastics, antibacterial smart plastics, ionic suspensions, I mean, actual true, foundational, type of like talents, so.
Excellent. That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm telling you, there's a big future for that. I can see it big time.
Yeah. We're working with some very, 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 very large clients right now, and I mean big clients, food and beverage all the way to the military, all the way to, hospitals, geriatric, I mean, surgical centers and things like that, I mean, all the way down to children's toys, so, I mean, it's definitely something that it's an enticing prize, for an individual to, commit such a cowardly criminal act, I can't imagine.
Well, we're going to get all these SOBs. We're going to get them. We're going to get all of them. We're going to prosecute every one of them across the board. One way or another, we will. I guarantee it. But I want to thank you so much, James. It's been an honor to have you on tonight. I wish you everything wonderful. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight also. And thanks for everybody in chat. And stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Becky coming up next to sell you on tonight from Down Under, as they always do with their wonderful show, as we all know. Any final words here? I think we're going to run out of time. You have about a minute, James. Is there anything you want to say?
Yeah, educate yourselves. There's plenty of information that's on the internet, go about it with both eyes wide open, definitely keep your mind open to a lot of things that are out there, there's a lot of disinformation as well too. And I would definitely encourage an individual, silently and sound of mindfulness, go inside themselves and pray very deeply for the guidance of, any type of reconnaissance of information.
Well said. Well, thank you, James. And thank you, everybody. Have a great week.